All right, are you ready? This one is going to be a little bit of a shocker. It was even a shocker to me as I prepared this. I know many of you are probably familiar with Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, George Orwell's 1984. I tell you what, it talked about editing the genes of babies, and we're doing it now. This was supposed to be set like 500 years in the future. It's only been about 80 since this was written. I mean, it is upon us now. Over the last few years, concerning the Antichrist, many people thought the Antichrist was going to be some kind of a heathen. Some are wondering, no, he's going to be from Islam. Oh no, others say the Antichrist is going to be Jewish. And then some wonder, well, maybe the Antichrist is going to be a professing Christian. I don't know, I've never thought of that, but look at your first verse. This is in 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. He said, little children, it is the last time. Now, if it was the last time 2,000 years ago, we are in the last of the last times. But look at this. He says, and as you have heard that the Antichrist shall come, even now are there what? There are many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time, and they went out from where? From us. The many Antichrists came out from among the believers. Did you ever let that verse sink in, that these Antichrists, according to John, are coming out from among the believers? Now, many try to figure out who the Antichrist will be, but few have ever wondered what he might be as well. But more importantly, it's why. I mean, some people wonder, will he be some kind of a human computer cyborg or some kind of a AI robot? These are some of the things that I discuss, and I can't help but think of this. I just saw this in the news the other day. Robot that thinks for itself from scratch brings forward rise to the self-aware robot. This kind of shows you where we are at right now. But how many of you know when you profile a murderer, or if they're trying to do a profile, what kind of a person would do this type of thing? One of the top priorities really is the motive. That's the big question. Why? That's what they always try to solve, is the why. Well, how many of you know, according to the scriptures, it says Satan has been a murderer from the beginning? When it comes to worship, it's all about him. He was supposedly the lead worship, the head worship leader in heaven. I believe the Antichrist will be totally narcissistic. So I believe when it comes to truly decoding the Antichrist, often people ask me, well, do you think the Antichrist is a person or is it a system? Well, I think it's both. I believe that the Antichrist will be coming to a planet near you very soon. The Antichrist wants to build his system in the world. It's a system of legalized lawlessness that I speak about in the book. And I think we need to realize that the discovery of who or even what the Antichrist will be really is not as important as to understanding, like I said, the motivation. What is the motivating purpose behind an Antichrist? Why is he coming, I believe, at this time? We need to know what his goals are, what his modus operandi are. We need to know the motivation behind his actions. Ultimately, I think he wants absolute control over humanity. And I believe, in one sense, why did Satan want to destroy the babies during Moses' day? Because the devil knew Moses as the Messiah was coming. Why do you think he wanted to destroy all the babies in Jesus' day? He wants to destroy the Messiah that is coming then. I think it's interesting he's trying to destroy all the babies today as well. But I believe more than anything, the Antichrist wants to stop the Messiah's return. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't want the Lord coming back. And he's trying to stop the restoration of all things spoken by the prophets since the world began. How many of you know social media is flooded with doctored videos? We can't even know the difference between what's true and what's fake anymore. Just recently, the last few weeks, if you've looked at some of the videos of newscasters, they can put someone else's face on someone else's face. And it's amazing. But here's an article I read that was published by CNBC. And here's what an expert declared, that artificial intelligence could be billions of times smarter than humans. And he said, therefore, we might find it necessary in the future for humans to merge with computers in order to survive. This article quoted Elon Musk. You ever heard of Elon Musk? He has warned of a coming robot apocalypse, he says, saying there's going to be a need to have a link between artificial intelligence and our brains in order for us to even survive, he says. He started a company called Neuralink, and it's developing a ultra-high bandwidth brain-machine interface to connect humans and computers. Okay? I mean, you can learn a new language instantly. How many of you have heard of the ACLU? They're sounding an alarm about a patent application from Amazon that would pair face surveillance program with a doorbell camera. How many of you have heard of Ring? You can get up into the Costco. There's these cameras that you can put on your door so that if someone comes and knocks on your door and you're at work, you could actually look at your phone, see the person on your front porch, talk to them, and they think you're inside. All right? You following me? But what's really interesting about this is with this facial recognition as well, the homeowners can match the faces of people walking by the camera with a photo database of people that they might deem suspicious. So let's say you have someone who's stalking you, and they have facial recognition. They know the stalker's at your door. But here's the thing that is scary. How many of you know there's two sides to technology? There's a good side and an evil side. With this doorbell camera, not only you can see who is coming to your porch, you can see who goes to your neighbor's porch. Okay, this can see what's going on across the street. As a matter of fact, I was told recently by someone who is in jail that they use their neighbor's doorbell Ring camera to see how many times that he went to this person's house. But here's what's even scarier. We may think it from a security point of view, it's good that we can see who's coming into our house, right? But guess what else? The government also will know how often you come home, the kids that come home in your house, when they come home. If you wanted to hide any Jews from another Holocaust, they would know when the Jew comes into your house. They can track, I mean, yes, you can see who comes into your house, but so can everyone else. And just yesterday, I think it was, someone who had one of those Nest cameras in their baby room, the dad hears a man's voice. He goes in the room, and there's a man who had hacked into his Nest camera who's speaking to his 6-month-old infant. And then he was getting mad. Well, the guy saw him come in, and he started cursing and swearing at him. I mean, these things can be hacked into, guys. Now, how many of you ever saw that TV show, Person of Interest? Okay, it's massive surveillance. How many of you have heard of the singularity? Who has not heard of the singularity? Okay, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to bring in a few words here. One of them is about the singularity, and it's a hypothesis that the invention of artificial superintelligence is going to trigger runaway technological growth, resulting in huge changes to human civilization. Then you have transhumanism, which is a philosophy that advocates for the transformation of the human condition by making all these widely available technologies to our human intellect, our physiology, incorporating computers and things into our bodies. But one of the most weirdest of all is what is called Christian transhumanism. I'm going to read you from you can Google this, Christian transhumanism. Here's from one of their websites. Now, this is not me speaking. This is me reading from this transhumanism website. Christian transhumanism. And they're talking about how there's an exponential growth in the rate of exponential growth. They say it is soon coming where machine intelligence will surpass human intelligence, leading to this singularity that they're talking about. It says it will represent a rupture in the fabric of human history. The implications include the merger, and here's this NBIC. What that refers to is nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, and the cognitive sciences, okay? And they say all of these really are to help us focus to improve the human condition. And they say, this is on the Christian Transhumanism website. They say the implications include the merger of biological and non-biological intelligence, immortal software-based humans, okay? And they say it will expand outward to the universe like a speed of light. Now, here's what this Christian Transhumanism website said. We will become eternally self-sustaining and universally creative, which is what God is. The eternal state of being is now shared. It is the gospel, for God's sake, he says. Do not let anyone talk you out of that. This state of being promises everyone an eternal, healthy life. And then it said, here's the paradox of humanism and Christianity. The gospel, in the light of our new understanding, is man and God now become merged. The deification will be a smooth and a continual process. And then it says, we are living in a time when it is becoming more and more apparent that brain interfacing technologies are converging on the wish of the Holy Spirit. He says it is easy to see if you look at love this way. Technically, he says, love can be seen as the process of connecting. Peace allows unwavering attention so that the love process can establish a clear connection. He says, put this all together and you have the perfect state of mind. With these principles, we will build the new temple, a society of loving individuals. Anything that empowers the love process has the blessing of God. This is a Christian transhumanism website. So I just want you to see what's happening, even in Christianity. Moving from religion, we go to politics. So let's look at China. I'm telling you, it will take your breath away to learn how advanced AI surveillance has become in China. All you got to do is Google China surveillance state. Do you know they have not millions, hundreds of millions of artificial intelligent cameras that have been installed, and they can now catch a suspect within minutes. In many big cities, they're already tracking, and they publicly shame jaywalkers, okay, by using cameras to scan their faces and identify them. Then they show their photos and all their personal information on large screens like in New York. Everyone can see who just jaywalked. China combines this surveillance with an analysis of its citizens' social media habits as well, and their online shopping purchases to determine whose lifestyles are determined to be more wholesome. People in China are given a social credit score based on everything from what they post online to how quickly they pay their taxes to, again, how they even cross the street, whether they pick up trash for a neighbor. They say citizens who do not visit their parents or sort out their garbage into the appropriate recycling bins can now be penalized and effectively frozen out by the state. There have been videos where China even has government employees whose sole job is to monitor their neighborhood and report back on who are the good citizens and who are the bad citizens. They're paid like $50 a month. Can you imagine a government hiring the underprivileged for such a task and then rewarding them with little perks? What about violating traffic laws? That's really bad, where you can really become blacklisted. As a matter of fact, with your social media credit score, they already are banning people from flying on airplanes, purchasing train tickets. They're even prevented from renting or buying property. The children can't attend private schools. As a matter of fact, Chinese schools enforce smart uniforms with GPS tracking to surveil students. Right now, all the students, they wear uniforms, they have GPS things. If they skip school or truant, they know. If they try to swap uniforms with another kid, they know. They know when the kid arrives, they know when the kid leaves, and they even know when they fall asleep. They have headbands, a lot of them wear, and they wake them up. They say this is going to tackle truancy and boost attendance. This is just amazing. And paired with facial recognition devices installed on the school doors, the smart uniforms, they know even if people swap their uniforms. If you post fake news online, they even say if you buy an excessive amount of video games, they're going to know. Some of the punishments include slowing down their internet speeds, reducing access to good schools, banning people from certain jobs, preventing booking at certain hotels. You can even lose your right to own pets in China. And they're surveilling everything. They're monitoring everything. But guess what? You can't get off the blacklist. You just have to pay fines, which they refer to as just making donations, to another government employee, to a charity. You can also do volunteer work. But here's what happens. The people with the higher scores are given perks like they can jump in the line for health care, they get discounted energy bills, lower interest rates, skip deposits on apartments. A higher score will even boost your profile on China's largest online dating site. So they get credit points for doing things like performing volunteer work, donating blood. But the main way they can increase their credit score is by reporting on others who do not comply. Interesting. So China is planning to rank all 1.3 billion citizens. They've already have several hundreds of millions. They plan to have this done by the end of this year. Every single person. And it's all about facial recognition, too. And guess what? Your photos are on your passports. Your photos are on your driver's license. Your photos are on your Facebook. You know, that's not going to be a problem. But I have here that millions of China's 1.4 billion citizens have already been given these social credit scores. And I have here a statistic. They've already blocked more than 11 million people from booking flights and another 4.25 million from taking trains just in this last couple of years. What is happening in China is happening at lightning speed. China is trying very hard to be the #1 economy over the world. You know that. They even currently have major so-called re-education camps where Christians and Muslims both find themselves being swept up from their homes or from their workplace, and they're detained if they are deemed to be in need of being re-socialized. They literally have hired some of these Chinese people to go into the Muslim homes and live there for a couple of weeks to monitor their behavior in their house. And there's nothing that the people can do about it. Now, people tell me, oh, it can't happen here. There is a Democratic candidate for the 2020 election who already wants a government-sponsored social credit system comparable to China's here. And he's running for president. Let's hope he doesn't win. But he's a New York entrepreneur. His name is Andrew Yang. And there's a race going on right now before our eyes over which country will be at the control of this new order that is coming. I think this may come as a shock to many of you, but I really believe that people will clamor to be the first in line, like on Black Friday or some big sales day when it comes to getting the computer technology embedded into them when the time comes, because it's going to make life so much easier. I think what will happen, this will be sold as the ultimate connection to everything the world has to offer. I believe the assimilated Christian will be much like Lot in the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, totally clueless, believing the lie. And the reason why they're going to believe the lie is they're allowed to keep their Jesus, and they can still pull him out of their pocket when they want him. While some knew God's acts, Moses knew God's ways. We need to understand God's motivating purpose behind what he does. But when we go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8 through 11, it talks about, then shall that wicked one be revealed. You know what the Greek word there for wicked is? It's lawless, without Torah. The Antichrist is one who is without Torah. And it says the Lord is going to consume him with the spirit of his mouth. He's going to destroy him with the brightness of his coming. But look at this. It says it's after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. Okay, with all the deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish. But look at the reason why is because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And this is why God is going to send them a strong delusion that they should believe a lie. But look at 1 Thessalonians 5, 1 through 3. It says, and this is what is so encouraging, and I hope we need to realize this is the good news. It says, but of the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need I write to you, for you know perfectly well the day of the Lord comes as a thief in the night, when they will say peace and safety, sudden destruction comes as travail upon a woman with child, and they'll not escape. But the very next verse, verse 5 says, but you, brethren, are not in darkness, that day will overtake you as a thief. That's the good news. Now, I want to bring out this other author who I've looked at some of what she wrote. Her name is Shoshana Zuboff, and this is a current book that's just come out called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, the fight for a human future at the new frontier of power. Now, we all know what socialism is. That's where the government wants to control everything. Capitalism is where the private enterprises does it, but often governments come in are involved. Okay, so when it talks about surveillance capitalism, they're talking about like Google and Facebook who surveils, but they're private enterprise. You following me? But how many of you know they also work with the governments? All right. The big question that she asked is, what is digital technology doing to us and to our world? And she describes it as the little saying of the 6 blind men who are trying to describe an elephant, and each have a different piece of the elephant, okay, but none of them can see the whole picture. And how many of you know when they invented the printing press around 500 years ago, they knew at that time the ramifications that would be 500 years later? They had no idea. How about the light bulb? When they discovered electricity, okay, around 150 or so, whatever years ago, did they have any clue that we'd be sending to the moon? Or that we'd be, no idea. What they're saying with all this digital technology that we're facing right now, we're seeing little parts, but no one sees the whole picture. And she says surveillance capitalism works by providing free services that billions of people cheerfully use, but it enables the providers of those services to monitor the behavior of those users in astonishing detail, often without their consent. How many of you know, often without your consent, they take information from you, about you? She says digital technology is separating all the citizens in all societies into 2 groups. Those who are watching and those who are being watched. You're watching or you're being watched. Nearly every product or service that begins with the word smart device, personalized device, every internet-enabled device, every digital assistant is simply she says, a supply chain interface for the unobstructed flow of your behavioral data on its way to predicting your future in a surveillance economy. How many of you know if you know the past, you know the future? That's why, God declared the end from the beginning. If you want to know what someone's going to be doing, look at what they've done for the last couple of years. By looking, I wake up in the morning and my phone says, it's this many miles to the El Shaddai office. I didn't ask them. It knows where I'm going. It knows when I'm going. Okay? Now, if you look at an election map, okay, how many of you know there's red states and blue states? Isn't it amazing how they can predict who the winner is before half of the country's even voted? Why? Because they look at the past. They see which states have voted. They even can look by county, every single county within every state. They know the red counties from the blue counties. By looking at the past, they can tell you who's going to win because they know what counties haven't voted and what they've traditionally been. So knowing the past, looking at the present, they can predict your future. Are you following me? I mean, it's really pretty simple. Now, here's what I really loved that she had in her book, and it really hit me. She said, look at the structure of colonial conquest, especially the first Spaniards who stumbled into the Caribbean islands. Historians call it the conquest pattern, which unfolds in 3 different phases, okay? Now, here we have, I got like a little picture of the Nina Pinta Santa Maria. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Columbus coming to, discover the new world here. And they say this conquest pattern that happens unfolds in 3 phases. The first phase is they provide legal measures that provide the invasion with a gloss of justification. They have to come up with some legal reason to justify their invasion. All right? Then, the next thing is they make a declaration of territorial claims. This is now for the Pope and the Queen of Spain, right? Okay, they make a territorial claims. Then what do? They find, or the founding of a town to legitimize their declaration. All right? Is everyone following me? All right. Well, back then, Columbus simply declared the islands as the territory of the Spanish monarchy and the Pope, and the natives were conquered. Those sailors could not have imagined that they were writing the first draft of a pattern that would echo across space and time to our digital 21st century. And guess what? Now, we are the digital natives being conquered. What they do here, all the data, everything about you, they come and they take your private information and they declare it as theirs, as Columbus declaring this country for the Spanish crown. They simply declare your private experience to be theirs for the taking, for translation into data for their private ownership and their proprietary knowledge. Google began by unilaterally declaring that the World Wide Web was its for the taking, for its search engine. Surveillance capitalism originated in a second declaration that claimed our private experience for its revenues that flow from telling and selling our fortunes to other businesses. In both cases, it took it without asking. Once we searched Google, now Google searches us. Once we thought of digital services as free, but now surveillance capitalists think of us as free. We become digital people that private companies take and they declare, like Columbus planting a flag, it's theirs. We have become like the natives in Columbus Day being conquered, and they've taken it from us without the asking. So this comes from this book, and one of the interesting things that she says also in there, she says the first conflict is over the distribution of knowledge. In other words, who knows? I can't help but think of the lepers in Kings, where these lepers, they didn't know what to do. They go out, the Syrian army was conquered, and here's all the gold and the silver and everything laying there, and they could take it for themselves. But they said, oops, who else knows this? We better go tell her, we'll be in trouble. The big question is, okay, who knows? Just like if you were to have buried treasure somewhere, the first thing you might ask is, who knows there's this buried treasure? So the first is the distribution of knowledge. Who knows? The second question is authority. Well, who decides who knows? And then the last one is about the power, which is who decides who knows. This is where we're at today. Knowledge, authority, and power rest with the surveillance capitalists, from which we are merely the human natural resources. We are the native people now whose claims to self-determination has vanished from the maps of our own experience, she says. Surveillance capitalism moves from a focus on individual users. This is what is scary. This surveillance capitalism, referring to like China and these other things, moves from a focus just on individual users to a focus on populations like cities and eventually on society as a whole, a global entity wanting to control countries. If you know where a country is at and you can control where they're going, all you have to do is provide them toward what their interests are to force them to go where you want them to go. I can't help but think of Daniel. In the book of Daniel, chapter 3, verse 10, listen to this. Here he produced this image, okay, everyone's familiar with. And they came to him and they said, "You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn and the pipe and the lyre and the trigon and the harp and the bagpipe and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image." This is where we are at today. She says not only that, but it is no longer enough to automate information flows about us. The goal now is to automate us. Here, I want you to listen to how one scientist explained it. A data scientist who's all about taking your data. He said this: "Why, we can engineer the context around a particular behavior and force change that way. We are learning how to write the music, and then we let the music make them dance." And what they're doing, they're making you dance to their music, to their tune. She says the message is simple. Once I was mine, now I am theirs. It is said technology is but the puppet. Surveillance capitalism is the puppet master. Users, they might get ownership of the data that they give to surveillance capitalists in the first place, but they will not get ownership of all the surplus or the predictions that are gleaned from it, much like all the trash we leave behind and all the data we leave behind. We don't even realize that they pull from us to learn our behavior. And so, in one sense, the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria have already sailed, and now the Armada is coming. And so for me, this is why I want to get this book out about decoding the Antichrist and the end times. This is about making people aware of where we are at technologically. And in one sense, it's like this perfect trifecta that we're reaching this year, where we not only have Islamic jihad and bringing in their Mahdi, at the same time, here we have all of the surveillance capitalists that are mining the data, and then we have also the politics of what's happening with Venezuela right now, and you've got China and Russia, and then you have, the whole Middle East, Israel and Syria and Lebanon. Everything, this perfect storm is coming this year. And this is why it's so important for me to tell everybody we need to be prepared. And, how do you prepare for something like this? Well, I think the most important thing is to know who knows. Okay? Well, now you know. Okay? But the next thing is stay close to the Lord. Make other people aware of what's going on. Because so often we are clueless. Now, next week, I'm going to be speaking the second half about the end-time eschatology of Islam, the end-time eschatology of Judaism with the United States and kind of how things are going. But for me, this is what is really important. We can get caught up on the latest superstar, or we can, they want to make us dance to their music. We need to dance to the Lord's music. Amen? Amen.